Y'all, first and foremost, give all praise to the Most High God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and his son, Hamashach Yahweh. Excuse me. And a sincere greeting to all the brothers and sisters scattered across the four corners, teaching this word with sincerity and charity. Let me see if I can find this. It's going to be brief today. It's going to be brief. And, I know a lot of people doing Thanksgiving lessons. I'm sure. I'm sure. What is that? I'm sure that they're going over this history and how everything was taken and so forth from the natives. You done heard the information, over and over. I hate, doing them lessons over and over and over every year because it is that time of year. Sending invites in. But I want to talk about the Osage Indians. They actually got a movie out in the theaters right now about them. In the theaters. They got them in the theaters right now talking about the Osage Indians. And if you don't know about the Osage Indians, you're gonna find out today. Find out a little today. Because really I'm just gonna read some little light wiki, and then I want to talk about some storylines within the text. Let me share my screen real quick. Osage. Some pictures of the Osage Indians here. I don't know if y'all can see my screen. No, somebody popped in. Shalom, brother.
Hey, shalom, brother. Shalom, brother. How you doing?
I'm doing all right, man. Doing all right. I had this on Wiki. I found a Wiki. Let me see if that's it there. Wiki is still not on the market. All right, I'll go ahead and I'll just read this article here about the Osage Indians. It says is people of the Middle Waters is a Midwestern American tribe of the Great Plains. The tribe developed in Ohio and Mississippi River valleys around 700 BC. Along with other groups of its language family, they migrated west after the 17th century, settling near the confluence of Missouri and Mississippi rivers. As a result of the arduous expansion in the Ohio country in the aftermath of the Beaver Wars. The term Osage is a French version of the tribe's name, which can be roughly translated as calm water. The Osage people refer to themselves in their Dagon Sioux language as Wahasi or mid waters. By the early 19th century, the Osage had become the dominant power in the region, feared by neighboring tribes. The tribe controlled the area between Missouri and the Red Rivers, the Ozarks to the east, and the foothills of the Wichita Mountains to the south. They depended on nomadic buffalo hunting and agriculture. The 19th century painter George Catlin described the Osage as the tallest race of men in North America, either red or white skins, there being many of them 6.5 or others 7 feet. Wow. The missionary Isaac McCoy described the Osage as an uncommonly fierce, courageous, warlike nation and said they were the finest looking Indians I have ever seen in the West. It'll keep going, but this ain't what I want. But we'll just get a little history on them. In the Ohio Courageous Warlike Nation found okay. In the Ohio Valley, the Osage originally lived among speakers of the same Deahan language style, such as the Kansa, Ponca, Omaha, Quata. Researchers believe that the tribes likely diverged in languages and cultures after leaving the lower Ohio country. The Omaha and the Ponca settled in what is now Nebraska and Kansas, and the Kansa in Kansas, and the Quapaw in Arkansas. In the 19th century, the Osage were forced by the United States to move from modern-day Kansas into Indian Territory, present-day Oklahoma. And the majority of the descendants live in Oklahoma. In the early 20th century, oil was discovered on their land. They had retained communal mineral rights during the allotment process. And many Osage became wealthy through returns from leasing fees generated by the Osage head rights. However, during the 1920s and what is known as the Reign of Terror, they suffered manipulation, fraud, and numerous murders by outsiders eager to take over their wealth. In 2011, the nation gained a settlement in 2011. The nation gained a settlement from the federal government after an 11-year legal struggle over long mismanagement of their oil funds. In the 21st century, the federally recognized Osage Nation has approximately 20,000 enrolled members, 6,780 of whom reside in the tribe's jurisdictional area. Members also live outside the nation's tribal land in Oklahoma and in other states around the country. The tribe is bordered by the Cherokee Nation to the east, the Muskogee Nation, and the Pawnee Nation to the south, and the Kaw Nation. But you see, hold on, my battery about to die. But you see, what I wanted to get into was that they found oil on that land in the earlier 20th century. And when I say they found oil, they were the Saudis. They were as rich as the Saudis are today. Back then, they were the richest people pretty much in the country. And they end up having white servants. They end up forcing them somehow to get white servants and white people over their pretty much over their paperwork, you know what I'm saying? Because to them they were illiterate. They didn't know how to read or write. They had to teach them that, if you back in the day used to have like all Indian schools. Like they would have schools strictly for the natives. Hold on, let me go here. Let's see here, FBI's first big case. All right, the FBI's first big case, the Osage murders, as detailed in Killers of the Flower Moon. That's the movie that's in the theaters now. Killers of the Flower Moon. The Osage murders were among the most chilling conspiracies in U.S. history, and the FBI's first major homicide case. All right, so he had in 19, the Osage Indians, Oklahoma, kept mysteriously dying. All right, those who were all rich, they just kept mysteriously dying during a period that came to be called a reign of terror. Scores, perhaps hundreds, were murdered, and in a nation where indigenous people face rampant discrimination, tribal leaders struggled to find answers or justice. Ultimately, the Nascent Federal Bureau of Investigation, under its newly appointed director J. Edgar Hoover, took on the case, uncovering a shocking conspiracy. One by one in the early 1920s, Molly Burkhart's family members turned up dead. Her sister Anna had been discovered in a Raven in May 1921 with a bullet wound to the back of her head, following the shooting of her cousin less than 2 years later. Molly's sister Rita and her husband were killed with an explosion when an explosion reduced their house to kindling. Molly suspected poison was to blame for the unexplained ailment that killed her mother. And in retrospect, even the wasting illness that killed her third sister, Minnie, in 1918 seems suspicious. It wasn't just Molly's family that was being methodically killed on Oklahoma's Osage Nation's reservation in that decade. More than 24 members of Osage tribe had been shot, stabbed, beaten, and bombed in one of the bloodiest crime sprees in American history. Investigators who probed the case too deeply also had a propensity for turning up dead. One attorney with information on the case was thrown off a speeding train, while the body of Barney McBride, a wealthy white oilman who agreed to go to Washington, D.C. to ask federal authorities to investigate the murders, was found stripped, beaten, and stabbed more than 20 times in a Maryland covert in what the Washington Post called the most brutal in crime annals in the district. As a journalist, author David Grand details in his 2017 book, Killers of the Flower Moon, the Osage Murders, adapted in it's talking about the film. And we pretty much going back over that history. Let's look at some of these numbers. It says Osage had screwily retained the rights to any of the mineral discoveries and oil barons such as J. Paul Getty, Harold Sinclair, Frank Phillips paid grant sums for leases at outdoor auctions held under the boughs of vast trees of a vast tree dubbed the $1 Million Elm. Each member of the Osage tribe received quarterly royal payments for their head rights, and as years progressed, so did the number of digits on their checks, growing into hundreds and then the tens of thousands. In 1923 alone, the 2,000 tribe members collectively received $30 million, the equivalent to $40 million today, according to Grant. So they had crazy money. And this too is how, anytime I hear people talking about, because Tulsa right up under there. Anytime I hear people talking about Tulsa and how that came about, it's all about this oil money and these minerals that these mineral rights that the people had. It's all about these mineral rights. It's all about that. It was black money. It was black gold down there that made them rich. And of course, you've seen the bombing that went on. It didn't just happen in Tulsa. It also happened to the Osage Indians. Osage Indians also. And what happened was, white folks came in there and they was trying to marry themselves into that family, into those tribes, or they were trying to murder their way. Once they got married, then they tried to kill the folks off. But like I say, it's a movie out there. I'm gonna try to check it out. Y'all willing? I'm able to check it out. Like I said, we're not gonna be here long. I also want to present. I'll talk about timelines. Let's see if I can share my screen here back to. Blue letter. I want to talk about timelines and storylines in the text. And this is something I've been thinking about for a while. Man, I just hadn't gotten around to doing a whole bunch of examples, but I'm gonna give one or two examples tonight. And when I'm talking about storyline, it was the movie The Avengers. It was a movie The Avengers with Thanos. It was the one with this character called Thanos. And Thanos, you know, when I seen it when he first appeared, and I went and seen it, you know, Thanos ended up winning. Thanos ended up getting all the rings, snapping his finger, and then half of the world died. And his reason for doing it, I agree with the reasoning. I understood the logic. I understood that it was, you know, it was a dirty, you know, it's a dirty game, but somebody had to do it. Like I understood what he did might seem vicious and violent and just like it got to be another way, but I understood his logic for doing it. It's almost like when insurance companies have to put a price on somebody's life. Like somebody has to do that. The insurance company has to have, where if an airplane goes down and people die, the insurance has to have they have to have some kind of calculations to calculate the worth of your life. Even though, you know, how can one calculate that? You know, even though how can one calculate the life of their dog? You know, some people love their dog so much, you know, they'll pay anything to have that dog back. Some people even get their dogs cloned. But I'm saying all that to say is that I agree with what Thanos did. I agree with the ending. And for me, that story was over with. I didn't need to see, but it wasn't over. They made another one. And somehow they rewinded time and brought Thanos back, but I didn't want to see none of that. For me, the story was over once Thanos snapped his fingers and all them jokers died. That's it. Game over. Then Thanos was out there on vacation. Game over for me. And so I didn't see no other ones. I didn't want to see it because I accepted that ending. And sometimes we do that with the text. And we do that too because of the methodology of, you know, little here, little there. But it has to be, when we're doing that, it has to be on the same. You could do that and get yourself in some trouble. And it seems like we have some kind of contradiction when you're doing that. Even when, you know, I always use the example of the dietary code where we see Adam and Eve only ate vegetables. The herbs were their meat. And for some people, they stopped there. For some people, that's what we need to be eating. The herbs and that's it. That's what we were eating in the beginning. And then we see Noah come around and he's thought he can eat any creature, you know, that's walking earth. And then some people stop there. And then we see a Levitical law given of a dietary law. All right. And some people don't, you know, and some people, some people don't accept that. Some people, you know, go back and, hey man, you know, all, you know, and they go deeper and translate other stuff. Or, you know, it's just not to my understanding. I ain't gonna say they just wrong, but I just don't see it that way. But we see the story progressed and things change, things happen. And we get tripped up too with that God doesn't change. Even the verse with in Numbers, I think it's Numbers 23:19. We won't go there, but It says, I'm not a man, God's not a man that he should lie or have to repent. And then you see later in the text that, and the Most High repented. And he repented of what he thought he was going to do to, to Israel. And so, if you bounce back, it depended on where you bouncing. If you bounce back and you put them against each other, then you causing contradiction instead of letting the story flow. Instead of letting the story ride out, if we picking here, picking there, and somebody can do that and then catch you up. All right, and this is another example of this here in Jeremiah 11. You'll see something like this here also. I'm gonna read this whole chapter here. It says, the word came to Jeremiah from the Lord, saying, hear ye the words of this covenant, and speak unto the men of Judah and to the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and say thou unto them, thus saith the Lord God of Israel, cursed be the man that obeyeth not the words of this covenant. Cursed be the man that obeyeth not the words of this covenant, which I commanded your fathers in the day that I brought them forth out of the land of Egypt, from the iron furnace. Saying, man, I could see somebody taking that iron furnace. Man, Daniel then wasn't in no iron furnace. It was really captivity, which was the iron furnace. Man, they weren't just sitting in no fire, but and you just got to be careful, man. And I only can do that because I know the methodology. Obey my voice and do them according to all which I command you. So shall ye be my people, and I will be your God. That I may perform the oath which I have sworn unto your fathers, to give them the land flowing with milk and honey, as it is this day. Then answered I and said, so be it, O Lord. It says, do these things, do what I commanded you, so shall you be my people, and I be your God, and I perform the oath. I'll give you that land flowing with milk and honey. But you got to do what I tell you to do. Verse 5, it says, that I may, verse 6, then the Lord said unto me, proclaim all these words in the cities of Judah and in the streets of Jerusalem, saying, hear ye the words of this covenant, and do them. For I have earnestly protested unto your fathers in the day that I brought them up out of the land of Egypt, even unto this day, rising early and protesting, saying, obey my voice. Yet they obeyed not, nor inclined their ear, but walked every one in the imagination of their evil heart. Therefore I will bring upon them all the words of this covenant, which I command them to do, but they did not, but they did them not. And the Lord said unto me, a conspiracy is found among the men of Judah and among the inhabitants of Jerusalem. They are turned back to the iniquities of their forefathers, which refused to hear my words. And they went after other gods to serve them. The house of Israel and the house of Judah have broken my covenant, which I made with their fathers. Therefore, thus saith the Lord, behold, I will bring an evil upon them, which they shall not be able to escape. And I will, and though they shall cry unto me, I will not hearken unto them. Then shall the cities of Judah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem go and cry unto the gods unto whom they offer incense, but they shall not save them at all in their time of trouble. For according to the number of thy cities, according to the number of thy cities were thy gods, O Judah, and according to the number of the streets of Jerusalem have ye set up altars that shameful thing, even altars to burn incense unto Baal. Therefore pray not for this people, neither lift up a cry or a prayer for them, for I will not hear them in the time that they cry unto me for their trouble. And this is one of the points. If we stop here, and we'll come back to this Jeremiah. What was that? 14. We'll come back. We go to 1 Kings 8. There we are. We I ain't gonna say we all know this, but 1 Kings 8. What is it? 32. Give the sin of the people. No. 1 Kings. Yeah. Carried away captives in the land far off. We just want the one verse. Then, okay, we'll start at 48. And it says, and so return unto thee with all thy heart and with all thy soul in the land of their enemies, which led them away captive, and pray unto thee toward the land which thou gavest unto their fathers, the city which thou hast chosen, and the house which thou hast built for thy name. Then hear thou their prayer and their supplication in heaven, thy dwelling place, and maintain their cause. So you see here, in their captivity, if they bethink themselves and face the east and face the temple and cry out and pray to the Lord, he'll hear them. All right, he'll hear them. But we read in Jeremiah, we go back to Jeremiah 11. It says, therefore says the Lord, behold, evil will come upon them, which they should not, they should not be able to escape. And though they shall cry unto me, I will not hearken unto them. Here he's saying, I'm not going to hearken to them. And this is what I'm saying. If people will take this and stop the story and say, well, God said he wasn't going to hearken unto you. God said he don't enjoy your feast days or your Sabbaths and your new moons. He wasn't gonna do nothing with that mess no more. But we gotta continue the story. You gotta continue to let the story play out. You can't come back to things like it's the stopping point, or this
conclusion.
This is the conclusion of the matter.
Right. Shalakia.
Go ahead, bro.
And Shalakia, man, I'm on my phone, so I will be reading for you, man, but I can't hardly see it. But
nah, you good.
And that's what I was saying, even when you go into that Amos 5, man, when it goes into that's the spirit. I was just going over that. When you go into the Amos 5, and it was saying that I despise your feast days. But when you really, and so a lot of Christians that use that are not keeping the laws of God, but that wasn't what was going on with the Northern Kingdom. That wasn't what was going on. They was really they was really in idolatry, and that's what the Most High was despising. But you got to read it in context. And so I was just going over that, man. Like, you got to keep reading, and you can't just stop midpoint, because you stop midpoint, you're not gonna get the full context of the story. And man, good point, brother.
Absolutely. And that's pretty much just what just trying to show here, is that there are a lot of things that are happening for certain reasons, specific reasons at that very moment. Like in that Amos, he's dealing with them at that moment of what they're doing. And we can't attach every moment to that, or we can't stop there and just say that is what it is. He ain't dealing with none of that mess, and so we shouldn't deal with it no more. But you're not reading it like it's a story. You're reading the book, trying to find certain points, but the book, It's law, statutes, and commandments, but it's still a story. And sometimes in stories, we don't even glean from it. Like, especially when we teaching, we don't even glean from a lot of the story. Ain't nobody out there on the streets corners quoting Samson. It's quoting Judges. Ain't nobody out there on the street corner, quoting the story parts of Daniel. Is we not doing that. But we do have to realize, and like I say, I got a couple examples. We do have to realize that you have to keep, like I said, you got to keep reading, and see the conclusion of the story, see the conclusion of the matter, and this goes with the whole text. All right, you gotta go all the way to Revelations. You got to know what's going on in Revelation, because things happening for specific reasons that things end up changing a little bit because of certain incidents that have happened throughout the gospel. Where we at? Verse 15. It says, "What have my beloved to do in mine house, seeing she have wrought lewdness with many, and the holy flesh is passed from thee? When thou doest evil, then thou rejoicest. The Lord called thy name a green olive tree, fair and of goodly fruit. With the noise of a great tumult he hath kindled fire upon it, and the branches of it are broken. For the Lord of hosts that planted thee have pronounced evil against thee, for the evil of the house of Israel and the house of Judah, which they have done against themselves to provoke me to anger in offering incense unto Baal. And the Lord have given me knowledge of it, and I know it. Then thou showest me their doings. But I was like a lamb or an ox that is brought to the slaughter, and I knew not that they had devised devices against me, saying, Let us destroy the tree with the fruit thereof, and let us cut him off from the land of the living, that his name may be no more remembered." And this is Israel, this is Judah plotting against Jeremiah. But O Lord of hosts, that judges righteously, that triest the reins and the heart, let me see thy vengeance on them. I don't know if that's right. I don't know if that's the right feeling that Jeremiah should be having, but Jeremiah like, man, let me see your vengeance on them. For unto thee I have revealed my cause. Therefore thus saith the Lord of the men of Anathoth, that seek thy life, saying, Prophesy not in the name of the Lord. All right, that thou die not by our hands. And so we see these people here. If you look into here, I looked into it. Let me see if I can. Ananotha. But it's goes into the priests. Answers to prayers is what it means. Name of two Israelites, a place in Paul. Yeah. See, it's of a Levitical town in the tribe of Benjamin, where Jeremiah the prophet was born. And so these folks, mostly Levites, because it's in Joshua. Yeah, Joshua 21:18. You'll see that some of the Levites were given this portion of land in Benjamin's territory. And they named it Enough. And they these priests, pretty much, or this lineage of priests, they like, man, if you say anything to prophesy anything out here, man, we gonna kill you, man. We gonna kill you. And Israel like that today, man. Israel don't want to hear nothing about what Israel doing. They only want to deal with the nations and what they doing. Israel don't want to hear nothing about what Israel doing and what the Lord doing to Israel and what the Lord do. They don't want to hear that. All right. Say, man, we'll kill you, man. We'll kill you, come with that mess. And let his name be no more remembered. Verse 20. It says, but the Lord of hosts that judges righteously, that trieth the reins in the heart, let me see thy vengeance on them, for unto thee have I revealed my cause. Therefore, thus saith the Lord of the men of Anath, that seek thy life, saying, prophesy not in thy name of the Lord, that thou die not by our hand. Therefore, thus saith the Lord of hosts, behold, I will punish them. The young men shall die by the sword, their sons and daughters shall die by famine, and there shall be no remnant of them. For I will bring evil upon the men of Anath, even the year of their visitation. And then you see a judgment going out with Jeremiah, going out against his brothers, man. But at the same time, brothers don't want to hear the words of the Lord. Don't want to hear the prophecy, and end up facing judgment because they didn't want the story to continue. See, it's like me. I didn't want to watch that second Thanos movie. I didn't want to watch it, but they didn't want the prophecy to continue. They didn't want the story. They wanted to keep it where they was at, stay in their sins and iniquities, stay in idolatry. So they face judgment.
It's shocking.
Go ahead, bro.
And that's pretty much what you kind of see on it. I heard you touch on it earlier about how you kind of see it today, and that's why, like, Israel, when you look at Israel going into other lands and they adopting other gods, and when you even go to the Maccabees, they were saying, no, ever since we have left the ways of these other gods, that it have been worse for us than serving our God. You know what I mean? So they start, adopting, creating gods of themselves. And sometimes we try to figure out people and why they worship these other gods, because these other gods for them is comfortable. It's a familiarity with those gods. And so you see that going on today. And Jeremiah and the prophets was talking to Israel. Israel was doing the same exact things because they don't like the correction of the Most High. They really don't like the Most High. They don't like the firmness and the toughness of the Most High structure. So they go after and create gods of themselves. And that's what Christ was saying, that that you have, the fear of men have been taught by the precept of men, because we are comfortable with Jesus being a certain way, and we don't have to have no kind of not stability. What the word I'm looking for? No kind of repercussion, not repercussion, but no kind of nothing that we have to do to in return to be in good standing with the Most High, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? But yeah, brother.
And that's kind of what I'm about to go into also, because both will stop. Us Israelites will stop at a certain point when we dealing with salvation, and Christians will stop at a certain point. But you got to keep reading, and you both, and it ends up we end up teaching two half truths, instead of us going to to the end of the book and seeing exactly how you get in there. Everybody, we familiar with this. Matthew 19, young rich ruler. He says, 19:16, behold, one came and said unto him, good master, what good thing shall I do that I may have eternal life? And he said unto him, why thou callest me good? There is none good but one, that is God. But if thou wilt enter into life, Keep the commandments. All right, you enter into life, keep the commandments. And we'll stop right there. And we'll go into certain commandments that we need to be keeping. All right. We have another incident in Acts 16. 16:30. There we go here. All right, they was in jail. We read 29. It says, then he called for a light and sprang in and came trembling and fell down before Paul and Silas and brought them out and said, sirs, what must I do to be saved? And they said, believe on the Lord Jesus Christ, and thou shalt be saved, and thy house. So you got in one instance, you have Christians who will probably just give you this. You have Israelites that'll just give you the Matthew 19, 16. But if we continue to read on, we go to Revelations, you'll see that it's both. All right, you need both. You need to have faith in Christ, and you need to obey. You need to be keeping the commandments. But there's things that happen after Matthew 19:16 that brought in the gospel of faith. They brought in, you having to believe on Christ. But before that, or if you go anywhere before that death, burial, and resurrection, then it's just gonna be keep the commandments. That's all it's gonna be. That's all it's because that's all you had. Even we go into behold the whole aspect of the priesthood changing, you got to continue to read to see that. But if you don't go there, or if you don't accept Hebrews, or if you don't accept Paul's writings, then you still dealing with you still have Aaron as a high priest. And you still waiting on the ordinances and doing the ordinances of the temple. You waiting on the temple to be built. And that's like our Old Testament brothers. They they stopped the story. The story ended for them in what's that, Malachi? The story ended for them. And they're not accepting no Messiah. They're not accepting no faith in no Messiah. And they're not accepting, no order of Melchizedek, and no Christ being no mediator. They're not accepting that. They're not accepting, that blood being an atonement for them because they stopped the story. They didn't keep reading. And so what we end up doing, we end up fighting over this. We end up going back and forth with each other over keep the commandments and faith in Christ. And we going back and forth and arguing with each other, and you both right. You both right. It's just when you separate them, then you wrong. Then you both wrong because you teaching a half truth. And so we can't stop the story. The story continued on. He died on the cross. He rose. Gotta have faith in that also. But it doesn't neglect what was said before also. Doesn't neglect that we don't keep the commandments. And then we, again, like we see it in Revelations, those who have faith in Christ and keep the commandments. And so you read unto the end. Let me pull out one more point that I seen earlier in John 9. And then I'll close up. And there's several examples of this. Like I said, you guys gotta start putting these stuff together. Um, and this just something to be mindful of when we, because we were taught a certain way. Even when I go here, when I go to John 9:31, I forget the other precept in Psalms. Gotta get my sword. But John 9:31, it says, "Now we know that God heareth not sinners, but if any man be a worshiper of God and doeth his will, him he heareth." And like I say, it's a correlating verse in Psalms. Let me see if I can find it real quick. I want to say 28 something. Even his prayers will be cursed, something like that.
Yeah, it's Proverbs.
Proverbs what?
28 and 9, I think it is. Is that right? Let me look at it. I ain't look at it in a minute. Proverbs.
Yeah.
I know it's 28.
Yeah, come
on.
It says, he that turneth away his ear from hearing the law, even his prayer shall be an abomination. It's a little different though. Well, no. He who turneth his ear from, so you turn your ear from not listening to the law. Pretty much sin. You want to sin. But his prayer should be an abomination. But what was funny about this, when I was reading this the other day, what was funny about it was this is going into the blind man. The dude who was born blind, Christ healed this dude. They want to know how in the world did Christ heal this man? Because he a sinner. We just caught him breaking the Sabbath. So ain't no way he healed somebody that had been born blind. So I'm gonna start right here. I started 22. It says, "These words spake his parents because they feared the Jews. For the Jews had agreed already that if any man did confess that he was Christ, he should be put out of the synagogue. Therefore said his parents, he is of age, ask him." All right, so they checking everybody down, interrogating everybody, trying to see how this thing was done. How did this man have sight? Parents didn't want no smoke. They feared the Jews. They didn't want to get kicked out of the synagogue. So they was like, man, ask him, man, he grown. Verse 24 says, "Then again called they the man that was blind and said unto him, give God the praise. We know that this man is a sinner." We know Christ is a sinner. He answered and said, "Whether he be a sinner or no, I know not. One thing I know, whereas I was blind, now I see." Then said they to him again, "What did he to thee? How opened he thine eyes?" He answered them, "I have told you already. Ye did not hear. Wherefore would ye hear it again? Will ye also be his disciples?" Like what? Like, come on now, I told you already. Why y'all want to? You gonna join them? Like, are you really gonna join them if if you get convinced? Like, what's going on? He says, then they reviled him and said, "Thou art his disciple, but we are Moses' disciples." And again, stopping the story. They stopped at Moses. We're disciples of Moses. You his disciple, but we disciples of Moses. We know that God spake unto Moses. We know that for a fact. As for this fellow, we know not from whence he is. The man answered and said unto him, why herein is a marvelous thing, that ye know not from whence he is, and yet he have opened my eyes. Now we know that God heareth not sinners, But if any man be a worshiper of God and doeth his will, him he heareth. Since the world began, was it not heard that any man have opened the eyes of one that was born blind? If this man were not of God, he could do no thing. And so when I read it, when I reread it, I had to realize that it was the blind man that said this. The blind man is telling them, we know that God don't hear sinners, man. But if any man be a worshiper of God and doeth his will, him he hear. Initially, when I was just precepting, I might have thought that I might have thought that was red letter, or I might have thought that came from John. But it's coming from the blind man trying to teach these Pharisees. And then watch what they say. They say, they answer him and saying unto him, thou wast altogether born in sins. And doest thou teach us? Like, brother, you were born a sinner. That's why you blind. And sometimes, man, when we read it, sometimes things are conversations between individuals, and it ain't, you gotta be careful, man. You just gotta be careful. And read these things out, man. Slow down and read these things out. To see the context. I know we talk about that context all the time, but see the context and see who's talking, who's conversing, and because if you just picking verses, man, you don't really know who talking. Even when when you read the what's that verse, man? He created good and evil. He raises the poor from the dunghill. That's actually a song. That's literally a song that they're singing. But you can read it and make it like it's, make it like it's some stamped, certified, God is saying this. And I'm not saying he don't do that. I'm just saying we got to know in the context of what is being said. Because it holds another weight when you're thinking of, this woman is singing this song and giving praise unto God. Not saying it's not true, but you still just got to keep it in context. And just like you had to keep this in context, also. Not saying it is not true. He's right. He's trying to school them, but it's not. It's in conversation with something. It's a conversation between two people. It's in story mode. We in story mode here. And so it says, thou was altogether born in sins, and doest thou teach us? And they cast them out. And see, you can pick that up too. You can say, oh man, anybody who had this affliction, they're born in sin. That don't necessarily make, what they're saying is right. Especially if you quoting something that the Pharisees are saying. And if you don't know the context, you can mess around and do that. You could mess around and be quoting something that the Pharisees are saying against what Christ just said, because we're reading a story. If that makes sense. But I yield with that. I just wanted to bring out those couple points just to understand that a lot of this is story, there's proverbs and wise sayings, but It's certain things we don't. Some things we we know it's story mode, like Esther. We're not gonna pull a lot from Esther because we know it's story mode. We're not gonna you're not gonna have a lot of highlights in Judah. You know, because it's a story. That it's a that the story is playing out. Now, in the Gospels, it's a story, but you got red letter, you got wise sayings. Uh, but again, you just got to be careful, dividing the word that that we're not picking up certain things or picking up certain doctrines that didn't come from the Lord, but come from outside characters or Pharisees and Sadducees having certain dialogues, and then we add that to us because we ain't really read the chapter to even know what the conversation to know that that's in the midst of a conversation, and what that conversation is about. But I yield with that. You got anything?
Yeah, and even when you go into the Isaiah 28:10, when you go into that, me and the brother was discussing this a while ago about that precept upon precept. The scriptures say line upon line, line upon line. It says it twice, and I think that was in there for a reason. And so, content is king, man. You gotta read it in its proper context and understand the audience and understand, like you says, who's having that conversation. We do that in John 3, and that's the thing about Israel too. Like, we precept certain things when it's convenient, but we don't do that throughout the text. We don't get those multiple witnesses throughout the text, and to me that's problematic. Like you was going into that, Lord, I changed not that Malachi 3:6 was going into that, and but we're not reading that in its proper context, because it's plenty times that Israel did things, and the um Most High showed them leniency even after uh was um given a death sentence if they did it. And so you'll see the Most High still going there. They'll cry out to the Most High, and he'll redeem them, and then they'll do it again. He'll put them back in, and so um, you'll see the Most High constantly um making giving mercy, and mercy is really mercy, where mercy ain't desire is not deserving, is a way of changing. But when the Most High was really going into Malachi, that was really going to his statutes, you know um his covenant, the things that he have solidified have not changed. But as as um as as the way as his love for his children, he have constantly always changed to show leniency to the most I mean to Israel when Israel was not deserving. So that was more part of his laws, his statutes, his commandments, far as not changing. But the Most High always made provision for Israel to escape even after Israel didn't deserve it. Well, good lesson, brother, man. And I'm done, brother.
And even the if you don't have the context with the um I'm not a man that I have to lie. Like if you just pull that, then you got something where it's just saying, well, God don't lie, or God don't change his mind, and it's more of a stint of I don't have to, man. You not believing what I'm telling you, but I'm not someone that has to lie. I'm not a human like you that I have to lie. If I said I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it. Or it's just like somebody coming to me and they want to borrow $1,000, and I say, man, I give you $1,000. He said, man, you sure you'll give me 1,000, man? What you mean you give me $1,000, man? I tell him, man, what am I lie for? Or I say I'm gonna pick you up at 10 o'clock. Man, you gonna pick me up, man? You ain't believing that I'm gonna pick you up. And then I'm like, man, I ain't gotta lie. I ain't got nothing to do. What I got to lie for? What I got to lie about picking you up, man? That's small. And the Most High don't have to lie. But that don't mean I won't pick you up. That don't mean though, I ain't gotta lie to you today. I say I'm gonna pick you up, man. But that don't mean that I won't, you done said something crazy, you done cuss me out. Or I'm out there waiting and I honk the horn and you ain't came out the door in 10 minutes, 15 minutes, I won't leave you. But I'm just telling you my status and the power that I have. I don't have to lie to you. If I promise you something, I have the ability to keep that promise. I have the ability to not have to change my mind. Because you have Israel that don't believe it. They doubting. They in the wilderness doubting that he can do that. But if you don't have that context, then you make it something where you try to put an attribute on the Most High that if you hold on to that, you're gonna see him change his mind. Like you said, it's mercy. If he didn't change his mind, we'll all be dead. We'll all be dead. Got time for this other point? Let's make this last point here. Well, no, I do it another time. But with that, man, Israel, man, I hope y'all were edified. And again, we just talking about methodology. All right, just when you go in there, again, like Ox said, man, you read line upon line and make sure that you're understanding the context of what's being said there. We got to start growing, and sometimes to do that, you have to go back and read some of the things that you got to go back and read, man. You got to go back and read. Just read it. Just read it. And sometimes, like I say, man, we looking for stuff and we looking for topics and we doing classes that are just topic based. So we on the internet finding all the verses that have something to do with love, or having something to do with, or having something to do with loving thy neighbor, or have something to do with keeping the commandments. And we gleaning from all of these places and we pulling these verses from all of these different places, and we never learn what's going on in those spots. And I've done it. I'm telling you, you can look at a lot of my lessons, man. I probably got about 300 lessons, about 200 of them, probably about 50% of them verses that I done pull. If you ask me what's going on in that chapter, I probably couldn't tell you, because I gleaned to find the verses on the topics. And so that's where I'm trying to get to now, that I know what's going on in each of those. And usually I had to go back. Now I go back and when I pull up the lesson, I go back and read what's, I kind of scan through to see what's going on in those particular chapters where I pull those verses from. But initially, I just pull the verses to make the topic of the class. And so you just miss a lot with that. You miss a lot with that, and really, you end up learning that you don't need 70 verses and 20 slides to make a class. If you just really just delve into what's happening in these particular places you gleaning these things from, you'll realize you be over an hour. Really, we ain't read about 2 chapters. You'll go over that time frame that you're looking for, because you'll know what's going on. You won't just be reading 1 or 2 verses. You can quote Revelation 13:10, but then you say, well, what's Revelation 13 about? And Joker don't know. Or you quote Romans 11, you say, well, what's Romans 11 really about? What's going on in there? Or Romans 9:1. They're like, what's going on? What Paul really talking about through the chapter? You should know that. You should know Romans 11 about the grafting. You should know Revelation 13 about got something to do with the beast and the marker, etc. But again, I yield y'all. Israel, y'all be blessed again. I pray this thing was edifying. Shalom.
Shalom.